You really can't hang securely harnessed by the ropes of standard everyday life and simultaneously call the sun-warmed tarmac your home. The unforgiving road, whether it's blacktop, gravel, or sand, always invites calamity. It is an uncompromising reality. To accept one is to deny the other. You can either hang on to the tested and approved, rinse and repeat way of life, or dig for something sharp enough to cut the right ropes and welcome the free fall to come. After some minor technical difficulties, we finally made it into Mexico, our first border crossing. Sam is the responsible one, so she made sure we had all the paperwork in order to properly cross over to the fun side of the wall.
So the problem we had crossing through into Tecate was with the FMM. I went and I filled everything out online, and then I hit confirm, but I didn't print any form. I did take a screenshot of my FMM, but I didn't take a screenshot of Travis's, which apparently is a problem. So we had to redo the whole thing, and we had to pay again. So don't make that mistake like us. But if you want to know more specifics and logistics of crossing the border, I highly recommend Tecate because it's calmer, and you can click the link above to learn more about it.
So there we were in Mexico. We finally made it. Once crossing over, you end up in a new country, new traffic patterns, and beautiful vineyards everywhere in Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe del Norte. It's a beautiful valley full of vineyards that really are all over the place. Some really top-grade industrial-sized vineyards all around us. Not too long after getting into Mexico, all of a sudden we were faced with a heart-dropping moment. Somebody pulled out right in front of us, coming onto the street, entering from another side road, and I about had to completely lock up the brakes. And then of course I wanted to go around him to look at him, give him the stink eye and maybe half a peace sign. And guess what? It's a 10-year-old boy driving.
Okay, so our route through Baja, we started, the first big city was Ensenada. From Ensenada, we went to Camalu, camped there. Then we went to Caravina, and then on to Guerrero Negro, where we finally got to relax for our anniversary.
Venimos desde Ensenada, pero sí. Yeah. Venimos desde Texas. Estamos haciendo un viaje tocho. Sí. Okay. Sí. Algún día, sí. Okay, gracias, señor. Hasta luego. There you go, sleeper.
All of it went smoothly apart from the wind. They say here, mucho aire. I felt it. I felt a lot of wind. I didn't like going fast through the mountains. And that was probably the lowest point for me. I was ready to turn back because it was worse than crossing west from Texas to California.
Even for myself, I started to feel there was some straights we passed through the mountains. There's semis coming the other direction. It's just two lanes, one going one direction, the other going the other. And I remember going through some, it was probably 20 to 25 mile per hour wind, and going through some of those mountain straights with a semi crossing, which already kicks up a bunch of wind on its own, and then us just wobbling with no quitamiedos, no guardrails on the sides. I was a bit spooked as well. Not to mention, there was one poignant moment that I remember. A shadow of a buzzard crossed us as we were out there in the middle of the nowhere in the desert.
Great omen.
I didn't say anything to Sam about that. She was already having a hell of a time.
That Baja California, north and south, those are great places to go see whale watching. So Cabo San Lucas is not the only place. You can see from the top Ensenada when you cross into Baja all the way to the south. There's great spots all over.
Guerrero Negro definitely praised their whale watching tours and tried to get us on board. I'm too much of a cheapskate to do it, so we did not do it in Guerrero Negro. What we did do, actually, we did our 2nd anniversary of being married, so we did exactly what my sweetheart wanted to do, which I also thought was kind of cool. We visited the largest salt mine in the world.
Owned by the Japanese.
So now it's time to show you that in true Japanese TV style.
ご覧くださいませ。侍よ。今私と旦那さん一緒に塩湖に来ました。スーパーアニバーサリータイム。へー。ほら、日本語が書いてあります。なぜだろう。わあ、ここは雪じゃないよ。本当は塩だよ。氷じゃないよ、塩だよ。今から塩を紹介するね。ほら。メキシコ塩はどこでも出荷されています。取引先は日本やフィリピンや北米や南米です。1973年に日本の三菱企業が塩鉱の 49% を購入し、メキシコ政府が残りの 51% を所有しています。毎年約900万メートルトンの塩を生産しています。これはメキシコの金です。1キロはだいたい2000円です。この塩はその形から花塩として知られています。
Alright, enough of the Japanese TV. Back to the trip. We left the hotel in Ensenada and hit the road. My sweetheart had a bit of a headache, so we needed to take it easy along the way. It was really nice having nothing but beautiful vineyards all around us as we stopped for a bit to relax. First night camping in Baja happened to be at an RV park/hotel called La Cueva del Pirata, or in English, the Pirate's Cave. Just so happened there was a big dune buggy crew in from the States. We enjoyed the view from our tent, they partied a bit up at the hotel, and we all ate breakfast together before leaving the following morning. Arriving in Guerrero Negro, you cross the 28th parallel. All that after crossing an isolated stretch passing through Catavina with no gas station in sight other than a few guys selling gas out of tanks in their pickup beds. At that point, we were needing to regroup. We relaxed in town for a few days. It was a slow little island-like town, the largest that we'd seen since Ensenada. The town's name means Black Warrior, which turns out to be the name of an American whaling ship that sank in the area in the mid-19th century. In 1957, the town was named after the old ship.
Encantada conocerles.
Just about 2 decades after John Steinbeck sailed down the Pacific coast of the peninsula as written and logged from the Sea of Cortez. It was a peaceful place in spite of the deceiving name. Crossing lands that seem hardly habitable always have me considering the plight of those who had come before. Who would look over the arid mountains pockmarked by desert shrubs and cacti and think about crossing them not knowing what was on the other side? Who would think about traversing the uninhabitable wilds, climbing whatever isolated ridge, and make a life no matter what path that they may have to trudge just to get over the next horizon? Well, the Jesuit missionaries considered such a thing. That's who. Say what you will about European colonialism in the Americas. It is almost by default that we scoff at the goals of these missionaries, with over 300 years of distance separating us from them. Anyone can be cynical and view them as nothing more than pawns of Spain's imperial ambitions. Anyone can snicker at their naivete and desire for martyrdom. But really that isn't fair. These guys had faith. They were absolutely obsessed with bringing Christianity to the Native Americans, and they were absolutely fearless in doing it. They were zealots for God and in a hurry to meet Him. Despite their zealotry, they were actually quite methodical. In the present, increasingly secular age, we seem to have developed a blind spot in respect to names like Thomas Aquinas or the heavy-hitting influence of scholasticism on our modern-day academic institutions. Our universities in the West didn't originate in a vacuum. These Jesuit priests and other missionaries of different stripe are history's fingerprints at the scene of such a truth. They were the most educated men of the time, and they were constantly refining their mode of operations as they led Spain's imperial advance. They began by arriving with gifts for the local tribal leaders, something to show the benefits of associating with Spanish society and, of course, of the Christian faith. They would make a concerted effort to learn the local language to facilitate their ability to minister to them, something they always did with alacrity. They'd seek solicitations from the natives for the establishment of a mission, then they'd take it back to their superiors and civil authorities, who invariably found it hard to stand in the way of the spread of the king's faith with his punitive subjects who were requesting it. And so a mission would be authorized. As the name suggests, the understanding was that these would be temporary enterprises until such a time that enough locals could be converted into the faith and turn into regular tax-paying subjects of the king. In fairness, it is easy to see where some of this may go wrong. Baja California and its missionary outposts were a little bit different, but only a bit. At first, Hernán Cortés actually recognized the peninsula as the island of California in 1535. For some time afterward, California was seen as an island on the maps of the time. In January 1683, the Spanish government chartered an expedition to the southern tip of Baja California. The landing party was eventually forced to abandon its initial settlement in La Paz and attempt to establish a settlement near present-day Loreto. This also failed as it was in the far reaches of the supply chain. The Jesuit priest Juan María de Salvatierra eventually managed to establish the first permanent Spanish settlement in Baja California, the Misión Nuestra Señora de Loreto Concho. Concho, probably meaning waterhole, as it was a distinguishing sight to behold a spring of fresh water in such an inhospitable country. Anyways, they erected a modest structure that served as a chapel, affixed with a wooden cross at the front, and later carried the image of the Virgin of Our Lady of Loreto on and signifying the Spanish claim to the territory and all its ritualistic glory. Thus began the Mission Loreto, somewhat different than the MO on the mainland. Founded on October 19th, 1697, the mission became the religious center of the peninsula and administrative capital of Las Californias. We will arrive in Loreto in the next episode, by the way. At any rate, from there, other Jesuits went on to establish other settlements throughout the lower two-thirds of the peninsula. The Loreto mission would eventually prove quote-unquote worthless as a breadbasket because of insufficient water to irrigate crops, but remained valuable as a base for expansion of the missionary enterprise and Spanish control of the Baja California. The Spanish recognized that providing food to the Indians would draw them to the mission, but food had to be brought from the mainland of Mexico across the often stormy Gulf of California. Supply lines played a crucial role in keeping the Baja California mission system intact until further missions could be established to maintain self-sufficiency. As for the Jesuits, they were eventually kicked out of the Americas by King Carlos III of Spain. This incidentally created the first individual American identity in the eyes of Europeans. We can expound more on that in later episodes. During the 60 years that the Jesuits were permitted to work among the natives of California, 56 members came to the Baja California Peninsula, of whom 16 died at their posts, 2 as martyrs. If you want to hear more about the martyrs, then you'll have to wait until we get to Los Cabos. Hope to tell you then.